Today, something I really wanted to show it to you is a workaround my MCP server. So my MCP server, it's really like not complex. I have built it just simple enough to show you how MCP server works. It's simple. It's MCP server. It's a bridge between an external service, an external API, and our AI model. So the MCP server sits in the middle. We have an external service, and then we have our AI model. A great example for that, recently I just found out that Google Analytics, they released a MCP server too. So they built it in Python in their case. And I think it's a really good example because now you can query about your stats, about your website stats, and you can easily generate nice dashboards with pie charts, with other charts, bar charts, and you can even generate images from there, from your stats of your website directly in ChatGPT or in Claude or in Mistral AI or in any other kind of AI model you would use, like Llama, thanks to the MCP server. So again, an MCP server is a specific protocol where things are standardized. You will see with the endpoint MCP server needs, but thanks to the expected output, so the output is the way the format, the JSON format a MCP server gives back, and the structure, so the endpoints, because it's quite unified, it will always work with any kind of external services, and the AI model knows what to get, what to receive. So it's really like a bridge between to connect the dots. And in our case, like this MCP server is quite simple. It's just to show you how it works. I use Fastify for this project. So it's not expressor.js or Nestor.js, but like any kind of framework are good. Of course, you could use also any kind of languages, PHP, JavaScript, Python, Java, whatsoever. In my case, I use TypeScript. And actually, you can see here, I use TSC to compile the JavaScript into TypeScript. I have my dist folder there, dist folder where you can see the JavaScript, the plain JavaScript files. Why dist? Because in my TS config, I mentioned the output dir to dist. That's why it's dist. And then, like the entry point is server.ts. That's the entry point. I could have everything inside of server.ts. We'll see later the context roots.ts. But in my case, I decided to have the roots in another file. That's, just like a personal decision I have made. And so here I register my static files, my static folders. So I have root and I have prefix. And then I do listen to request. And here that's the port. And as you can see, I use env variables. So I have .env in my case, just to make it simpler for loading the .env and so on. And so here I have mentioned, so I declare my env variables there to be loaded. So I have MCP name, MCP description, MCP tags with the prefix MCP. And for the version, I just mentioned app. For port is port, what I could have done like app port. And I also have an env dist. In our env, there's nothing secret keys whatsoever. So I show it to you, but always be careful. In your case, if you have any secret keys, don't screencast this because, you might show some sensitive data and some hackers can potentially use them. So always be careful if you have any like OpenAI API keys, And actually with OpenAI, it's quite good because automatically they detect if you have published an API key and they want to block your API key right away. They have a bot running all the time, fetching the web, and I found it really nice. And so, yeah, so in my case, let's go to server.ts, and so we do app port, because I renamed to app port there. And then that's our context roots. So there, it's just our roots, but it's unified. I use well-known. If you're familiar with OAuth, they also use well-known. It's quite new. It's a new kind of standard that they adopted. I mean, the MCP community adopted that kind of structure. So it's good to use it now. And then I have my model context. And then here I version my API with the content there. And then that's a sync, that's a get request, and that's also get. And that's our variables. Basically, here I have tags. That's a shorthand available since ES6. So I took a note actually just to explain to you in TypeScript or in JavaScript from ES6, that's the modern JavaScript. If we have this, we can simply, so if the name of the key matches with the name of the variable, that's going into that key. So we can use a ES6 object shorthand to, so that way we can, by using the shorthand, we can use the same variable. So this will create a key code, the same name as the value of the variable. And that way it's just, it makes it shorter, but also more readable in my opinion. And then we have the schema. So in my case, I mentioned my schema manually, but we could have used the standard schema like this. Oh, sorry, standard schema like schema, blah, blah, blah. Something like, I don't know the specific URL, I forgot, but the default schema. And then in my case, I just undo to this one. And then finally, that's my schema here. I register in server.ts, I register the Fastify static with public folder and prefix. That's just optional. But yeah, the prefix will be just root. And then that's pretty much it. In my README, I will publish everything on GitHub so you will be able to see. But in my README, I mention more details about the well-known structure, and how it can be super useful for you. And finally, when you build your API, I highly suggest you to use ChatGPT as your architect. A little bit like, an architect, like it's your design partner. It's your architect design partner. You use ChatGPT to ask you, what do you think about this structure, that structure, to do this, that. And the more details you give, the more context you give, the more relevant and the more accurate the answer will be. So I suggest you to really specify how your project is. When you have the ChatGPT desktop app, you can actually mention the files, like you can connect with your terminal, with item, with VS Code. So it's also super handy. And then, we have V1. If you are familiar with API versioning, you will be familiar with V1 to prevent breaking changes. When we have breaking changes, V1 will still be the same, and V2 will be the one with the breaking changes, basically. So env, I love using env file. I mean, it's just to have the variables that can change potentially. It's just a cleaner way to put them there, same as the version of the API. And finally, I have a citation file. Nowadays, actually, I always mention a citation file in all of my projects. So GitHub automatically detects your citation file, whatever, if it's citation.md, citation.txt, citation.cff. CFF is the ideal format. And it will show to users going to your repo how to cite your project. And automatically, users will know, I should mention his name, the name of the project. And similar to how GitHub show the license, automatically detects the license file, and it will say, this project is under MIT license. Well, it's the same now with the citation file. And the README, that's like the index page of your repo. And I use NPM. I don't use Yarn or PNPM. I just decided to make it simple, to keep it pretty without any more dependency whatsoever, just to make it minimalist. And then we have, prettier check, prettier fix. So prettier is a prefix and check. I like to use that prefix and then suffix in my package.json. Like if I do use ESLint, I would do lint and then check, fix. And then for prettier, you have prettier, or you could do format or formatter, and then colon. It's nothing to do with the way you call your comment, but it's just a kind of a convention to have colon for the prefix. I mean, to delimit the prefix and the suffix. Prefix would be usually the category of the comment, and then the suffix will be what it does, the action, the verb. And so I use prettier as a dev dependency, same as ts-node-dev. So ts-node-dev, thanks to it, you also have ts-node. ts-node is another package. In this project, I use ts-node-dev, but it's the same as ts-node. And ts-node or ts-node-dev, it doesn't require you to compile your TypeScript files to JavaScript. It will automatically do it on the go. So it will read your file and it will compile it on the fly. And build, so TSC, it will compile the TypeScript files into JavaScript, but manually. And this is where we have those files. And so that's much better for production because it's much faster. So it's better for optimization. And I believe that's pretty much it. So you can have a look on my GitHub if you wish to see. Even you can fork it and you can use this one as a boilerplate, as a Scalfort project for your next MCP server API. So an MCP server is a bit like a REST API, but it does follow quite strict conventions. That's the main difference. And what it does as well is a little bit different. And again, for optimization, like I was saying, you could cache the request. That's a very good way of optimizing your MCP server. You can limit the tokens. you can do a bunch of things like that. But caching for like 5 minutes, the request, that's already something you can optimize to prevent calling the AI model every time, and also to prevent eventual cost. It can be very costly. And the same for the limit of the maximum request you would allow. And I wish you a happy MCP server, developing day. I'm sure you will have fun with MCP servers and making your own one, and really see an MCP server as a bridge, and there's no limit. Thanks to it, like this kind of protocol to allow any AI model to communicate to any external services makes it so like mind blowing. Everything will become unlimited thanks to it.